Hello, everyone. How are you? I'm so happy that you are here with me for another live career question and answer series. Hey, if you can hear me in the chat and you can see me okay, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up and let me know, where are you joining us from? Where are you coming to us from in the chat? I would love to know where you are and what brings you here today. So go ahead and just introduce yourself in the chat. Feel free to connect with each other as well. And let me know where you are tuning in from. I would love to hear and see you. So I noticed that we have a couple people already here. Kieran, hello. He is a huge supporter in my Facebook group and here on YouTube. Always has some fantastic questions. Brenda, hello. Thank you for your question. We're going to hopefully get to that in just a little bit here. Nicholas is here. Hello. Welcome. Let us know also where you are tuning in from. Today we have a special live stream series. We are going to be talking all about how to get a job after a long career break. Now, I know this is a common scenario for a lot of people because this question came up a lot during the live stream last week, and I've had this question over the last couple of weeks just popping into my email quite a few times. So we are going to cover that in just a minute, but before we do that, I have some general questions that also came in to the chat last week that I wasn't able to get to. So we'll get to those in just a minute. And then if you have a question, make sure you type in #ask and then type your question. My team is in the chat with me today, so they are going to be filtering through some of these questions and popping them through to me so that I can make sure I get to them. And of course, I'm not going to take a whole lot of your time today, but I do want to try and get some of your most pressing career questions answered. So it looks like we have Brenda here. Hi, Brenda. We have Kevin here. Welcome, Kevin, from Alberta, Canada. Robin, hello. It's good to have you from Portland, Oregon. Becca is here. Daniel is here. Karen, Anita. Oh, I love it. A lot of you guys are here. I'm so excited for this. So again, if you have a question, go ahead and type #ask into the chat and then followed by your question, and then I will get to that as soon as we get to that point. So what I'm going to do now really quickly is I have a couple questions that I want to address that came in last week that I wasn't able to get to and that have just come through to my email the last couple of days. So I want to make sure we get these questions answered. And I'm sure this is some of the things that you guys have questions about. So hopefully we can get some really good answers out to you to help you find your ideal job. So this question comes from Melissa. Melissa says, if I am applying for a specific position where I have experience, do I just put that experience on my resume, or do I put all of my work experience on my resume, even if it's unrelated? So let me know in the chat. Give me a big yes if this has ever happened to you. Have you ever had a position where it wasn't related to the current position that you're applying for, but you really want the job? So you're trying to figure out, what can I put on my resume that really shows that I'm qualified? So Melissa, a couple of things here when it comes to applying for a position that maybe you have experience that's not related, is it's possible to take any of your unrelated work experience and apply it to the new role. You just have to be really smart about it. So you want to get to know as much as you can about the new position. And what I recommend doing here is reviewing the job posting very, very carefully and trying to find overlaps. So let's say, for example, that you were that you're applying for a financial analyst position, but let's say in the past you've had experience as a marketing assistant. Well, you really want to take inventory of that marketing assistant role, so the role that might be unrelated, and you want to look at what are some of the similarities. So as a marketing assistant, maybe you developed a marketing budget, or maybe you developed a campaign where you stayed under budget. So you want to talk about any of those overlapping responsibilities that might jive into the new position. Now, the other thing we want to really be careful of here is we don't want to dilute your resume. So you don't want it to be, showing that you can be a marketing assistant and you can be a financial analyst. You want to really bring it together and hone in on what it is that ideal position is for you, and then tailor your resume to that. So a good way to do this is to focus on some of your transferable skills. So these are skills that you've used in both positions or both industries. Some popular ones are leadership, teamwork, research skills, analytical skills, things like that. You'll be able to apply to both positions, and make sure you highlight that in your resume. So really good question, Melissa. Okay, next question comes from Lynette. So Lynette says, how long should you wait before reapplying to a position? So I love this question, Lynette. Now, if the position, let's say you've applied for a position and a couple months have gone by, if the position opens up again, or if it's still open, it's totally okay for you to reapply for the position. Now, my recommendation is to hit it hard in the beginning. So what I mean by that is that you are doing all the follow-up when you first apply for the position. So this would be sending your follow-up letter, making sure that momentum keeps going when you first apply. So following up within 24 hours, making sure that that your follow-up is mentioning, something that you guys talked about in the interview. You really want to stay fresh in their mind right from the get-go. Express your gratitude, tell them again why you are the best candidate for the position. And then you can follow up after that. You could even follow up with a phone call. Now, my recommendation would be once a week for maybe 3 to 4 weeks. Now, if you're not hearing back from them, that's another situation or another scenario. But I do have a resource that might help you, Lynette, and anyone else that is following up or has just had an interview. I have a interview. It's a template that will help you compose your follow-up to that hiring official. So my team is going to go ahead and pop that into the chat. And let me just, it's a quick little download. All you'll do is just enter your name and your email address. And it's a template that kind of walks you through what you can say in that follow-up. So make sure you grab that, and that link will be in the chat for you. So good question, Lynette. Okay, next question comes from Loy. So Loy says, what's a good way to answer why you are seeking a new position? So have you ever had this question in an interview? I know I have before in the past. Give me a big, huge yes if you've ever had this question in an interview before. So this is one of those questions where you want to show them, of course, why you're there, and what makes you qualified for the position. But you also want to navigate it with some a little bit of carefulness. So one thing that I would recommend, Loy, is to find some sort of problem that the company might be experiencing at that time, and how you can solve that problem for them, or how you can help the company in some way. Now, you might need to go through and evaluate your strengths and your weaknesses, and your intentions. What is it that really you can bring to the table when you go in for an interview? And that's really what you want to mention when this question comes up. Talk about what are you passionate about. So what are some of those things about that particular position that really stand out to you? And then focus on your career story. So how did you get to where you are now? And what was the natural progression for you to be here in the interviewing for the position? Now, a lot of times, we sometimes shy away from saying, hey, I'm looking for career growth or career opportunity. But the natural progression of someone's career is, most of us want to move into, we get a job and then we kind of want to move into the next thing. We get bored after a year or 2 years or whatever it might be. So we want to have a natural evolution to our career. So that's really what it would be when you're going into an interview, is really you're taking that natural career progression. So talk to them, be honest, let them know that you are looking for career growth. So good question, Loy. Okay, this question comes from Danny. So Danny says, what about reentering the workforce after being an entrepreneur? So Danny, had says my last full-time role was 8 years ago, and I have been an entrepreneur since then. So has this ever happened to you? Maybe I have some business owners here in the chat, which would be amazing. You ran a business for a while, and frankly, you're just done because it is a lot of hard work, and you're ready now to go back into the workforce. Well, where do you start? So what I would recommend, Danny, is you really need to lay out what are your strengths and what are you good at. Now, you've had a lot of experience over the past 8 years, so you might not be going into a role that you were in 8 years ago. You might be looking at a whole nother industry or a whole nother position, and that's totally okay. You need to evaluate, what did you do well in your role as an entrepreneur? What were things that you really enjoyed in that position? And look for positions that are similar to that. So you've acquired a whole lot of new skill set, I would imagine, and you want to make sure that you are focusing now on your new skill set rather than where you were before you were an entrepreneur. So let's take, for example, maybe you really enjoyed project management or planning as in your role as an entrepreneur. Well, now what you want to do is, how can you help another business do that same thing? So those are the types of roles that you would want to focus on. And let me also mention this, Danny, this is the time also that you need to probably rely on your network. So reach out to others that you've met over the 8 years that you have been a business owner, those that you have really good rapport with, and let them know that you're now going to go back into the workforce. They might have a position or a role just ready for you that you can jump into. So again, rely on your network, and then build out your LinkedIn profile and your resume based on the new position that you want to go into. So I hope that helps you, Danny. Okay, next question. This is the theme of our live stream today, is how to find work after a long career break. So I want to know in the chat, have you ever had a long career break? Have you ever been in a position where you have a gap and now you're ready to go back into the workforce? So a lot of times this can happen if you've cared for your children. Maybe you have some small children and now they're back in school, or they're in school full time now and you're ready to get back to work. Maybe you've had a sick parent that you've had to care for. Maybe you've had even a sick family member, or maybe you were sick. Maybe there was something that happened with you, or you had some sort of disability and now you're ready to get back to work. So let me know in the chat if this has ever happened to you. Have you ever been in this situation? So when it comes to jumping into work after a long career break, you want to assess where you are now and where you want to be. So this is really, again, and I know I've talked a lot about finding your strengths, but really finding out what type of work will you exceed in, or what types of things do you think you will do well in. Now, I have a little personality test that I like to refer to people. If you are able to jump into a larger personality test that will really drill deep, one of my recommendations is the Myers-Briggs. But if you want to just a quick, this test takes maybe like 15 minutes, or actually, I don't even think it takes 15 minutes, probably 7 minutes. Let me go ahead and pop it up on the screen here so you can take a look at this. It's 16personalities.com. This is one of my favorite just quick resources just to kind of get an idea of where someone is in terms of their strengths, their weaknesses, what types of roles do they think that they would do good in, or positions would they exceed in. So what you do here on this test is you go through, it's like a couple questions, I think when I took this last, it maybe took me 7 minutes. You'll go through, you'll take the test. What will happen after the test is it gives you kind of a personality assignment. Now, when I get the results from this test, and my team is going to pop this into the chat, I actually go through to another resource that I really love that kind of breaks it down. It's called truity.com. So my team's going to pop that into the chat. Once you get your personality result, what you'll do is there is a link up here. Let's see. Where can we get? Oh, personality types at the very top. This gives you all of the personality types. And I'm going to just tell you, in case you take this, I am an ESFJ. So that's when I am. So awesome if you're the same thing as me, but you'll get your result. You'll jump into this this category here, and what it's going to do is it's going to give you some recommendations for jobs, and you'll have to scroll all the way down. Actually, sorry, you don't even need to scroll down. I forgot. It's at the top here now under careers. You'll click on careers and then you'll scroll down the page, and it's going to tell you some of those careers that might be a good fit for you. Now, you might look at some of those and say, oh, that's perfect for me. Like, for example, on mine, it's recommending that I would be a good nurse, and I don't like anything related to healthcare. I don't like the sight of blood. I don't like hospitals. I stay as far away from all of that as I can. So of course I would look at that and say, okay, I'm not going to ever be a nurse, but there's some other things on here that I could see that I might want to be, like a counselor or, an HR manager or a corporate trainer. Those are some of the things now that are really speaking to me. So what you'll do is once you take the personality test, you get your result, jump over to truity.com, take a look at what the careers are that they're recommending for you, and do some exploration. So what I mean by that is you're going to look at what are some things or what are some job postings out there that you can apply for. Now, if you've had a gap or you've had some time off from the workplace, you're going to have to work a little bit in terms of really tailoring your resume to focus on what are some things that you did during that break that focus on that position that you are applying for. And then, look at volunteer work is a really big thing. So if you find a position that you say, oh, I might want to be, an event coordinator. Well, if you've never done event coordinating before, can you go somewhere to volunteer, or can you start reaching out to other event coordinators in your area that can help you kind of learn the ropes a little bit, even just job shadowing, or, really kind of honing in on some of those other things. Networking events are a good thing to start with as well. And then reach out to your network, do a targeted job search on these positions. So this could be, looking at LinkedIn, looking at Glassdoor. Google for Jobs is also a really good resource that you can look at. And then again, tailoring your resume for your for that position, and also tailoring your LinkedIn profile. Now, a couple other things that you want to keep in mind when you do have a career break is you really want to focus on your career story. So this is going to be when you go into an interview and the interviewer says, well, how come you were out of the workforce for 2 years? You want to have it like laid out, and you don't have to go into a lot of detail, but have, like a 30-second spiel about what you were doing for the past 2 years. And, if you were caring for small children or you were caring for an aging parent, you're bringing that into it. But then you're also going to say, during that time, I also did X, Y, and Z. And how does that relate to that position? So you really want to hone in on some of those other things that you've done during that time. And any of that other experience. And then another thing that I like to recommend is if you can, bring a cover letter together, and in your cover letter, explain that a little bit more in the cover letter. So a couple tips for you, and I put that a lot of you asked this because a lot of you did ask this last week, and it was fantastic to get that question. So thank you to all those who had questions last week and who had questions during the week. I'm going to take a couple minutes. I know that I only like to spend 30 minutes of your time. I know that you guys are all busy, and I'm sure you have other things to do, but I'm so happy that you decided to spend a couple minutes with me today. Let me go through, and I'm going to jump into the chat really quick and see if we can get some of these questions answered. Let's see. Okay, so Brenda, it looks like Brenda was probably first into the chat earlier. So Brenda, I'm going to answer your question. It looks like you have a couple. So let's see if we can get to them. Brenda says, what to say when they ask, when they ask what you've been doing in the meantime while searching for an employment if you have been unemployed since January. So Brenda, this is really similar. This is so funny because this question comes up so much. This is really similar to what I mentioned before in terms of, when they ask you about that break. What I would focus on for anyone that is unemployed or has some sort of career break or in the transition right now is get your feet wet with whatever you can that is showing you are moving in the right direction. So this could be a professional development course. This could be volunteer work. This could be job shadowing. This could be even informational interviews to ask people, hey, how did you get to where you are? Because this is a position that I really want to be in. What steps did you take to get to where you are? So you really want to try and focus in on some of those things that will show that you are taking some sort of initiative to get that end goal, which is the job. So hopefully that helps you, Brenda. Good question. Thank you for asking. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Jocelyn asked a couple questions. So Jocelyn says, I've worked in funeral services my entire career, and now she wants to transition into TV and film after a work break. How can I make the transition in a completely different industry? So again, this is really similar to kind of what we've been talking about. I feel like career transitioning is really popular, or changing careers is really popular, especially, as we get older and we've worked in a certain position for maybe, 10, 15 years. And now we think, well, wait a second, I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this. And Jocelyn, this might have been, have been the situation that you've been in. So my recommendation would be really pinpoint like the exact position or the exact area that you want to go in. So I know that you say TV and film, but what exactly in TV and film? Because there's so many different roles. So really research that industry like crazy and find out the get pretty close to the role that you think you might want to go into, and start doing informational interviews with people that are in that role to learn how they got to where they are. These informational interviews, I can't even tell you how powerful they are. It's one of the ways that I was able to start teaching for one of the big universities that I started teaching for. Let's see, how many years ago was that? 12 years ago. I was not qualified. They had people from all over the country applying, like from Harvard, from MIT, that wanted to teach. And I asked the department chair for an informational interview. And I just went in, he agreed. And I said, hey, I really want to teach for your department. How can I, what can I do over the next year to get in and start teaching for you? And he was like, well, there's really people from all over that are really qualified for this position. But we went through and he kind of told me. And at the end of the informational interview, he hired me, and I was teaching in the classroom the next month. So just that informational interview got my foot in the door, and I ended up teaching for that college for a whole year. And they even offered me a full-time position. I was having a baby at the time. So I didn't take the full-time position, but those informational interviews, Jocelyn, are so powerful. So find out exactly what position you want to be in. Start reaching out to people that are in that position, learn from them, and do a little bit of research on your own in terms of what does someone need to do to get into that, to break into that new industry. And then, of course, you would tailor your resume and your LinkedIn profile all toward that new position. So really, really good question. Okay, Kieran asked a question about what to write in a resume about the unemployment period. So Kieran, you actually won't really mention anything inside the resume about being unemployed. This is where a cover letter is really powerful, or a really powerful introduction email that can talk about that. And again, when I mentioned your career story before, you want to make sure that you have your career story straight in your mind, so that when you go in and you have to talk to someone about it, that you can say why that gap in employment happened, but what were you doing during that time that can show that you contributed in some way the skills that you learned while you were there so that you can show that you've made some contribution. I hope that helps. I know I've talked about that a lot today. So, okay, let's take a couple more. Take a couple more questions. It looks like there's a lot coming in, so I'm gonna kind of scroll through some of these and see. And some of them are really similar to what I've been answering. So let me just jump into, okay. Daniel asked about LinkedIn, and one of my favorite topics to talk about. So says, learning LinkedIn, still not comfortable, but getting better. Good. LinkedIn it's a massive beast. I definitely know that. Says, but told I should use LinkedIn Premier. How can it benefit with job hunting compared to the free version? So I love this question. In fact, I think I might do a separate video on this because I get this question a lot. So I personally don't have LinkedIn Premier, but I also haven't needed LinkedIn Premier. Now, there are a few different benefits when it comes to the Premier version. Well, you actually get quite a few benefits. You get more targeted job searches. So when you go into LinkedIn, you can do, I think they call it like a comparative analysis. So they show you where do you rank in terms of another job candidate. So are there other people applying for that position, and how much more qualified based on their profile, and I'm not saying that they're more qualified, but based on what they've written in their profile, how much more qualified are they than you, or how much more qualified are you than them? So you do get extra perks and bonuses when it does come to the premium version that allow you to target that job search better. It's a little bit easier to get in touch with people in terms of networking. What I would recommend, Daniel, is I would recommend maxing out the free version of LinkedIn until you get to a point. I know, because this happens to some of my clients. They're connecting with people and then they say, oh, you've met your max connections, you can't connect with any more people, and then it resets again. Now, there are tools around that that you can override some of those max connection requests, and I'll have to talk about that on another live stream. But I would recommend maxing it out if you're not getting results and there's more that you want to know about the position or the company, or maybe why you're not the one that's being selected for interviews, or hiring managers aren't connecting with you. Whatever that might be, you can jump into the paid version. Now, I do think that they offer 1 month for free, so feel free to use that as well and see if that helps. But really good question. Okay, I'm going to just jump in, and I'm trying not to repeat questions, but I know, let's see, Tiara, I think Tiara, I think that's how you say your name, has a question about resume. So I did answer this question a little bit earlier. So listen to the replay. One of the first questions that I answered here is how do you apply for a position where you have unrelated work experience, but now you're going into another role. How can you kind of combine them together, or if you should? So take a look at that when we're finished here. Let's see. Okay, awesome. So Kumar asked, if I'm taking a career break but doing my master's, do I need to put my work experience first or the degree we obtained last? So good question. So Kumar, I think what you're asking is, if you're working on your master's program, should you list the education first and then work experience? So this is debatable. Now, when I was going to graduate school, I had my master's degree listed first. So I always had it at the top of my resume with my all my work experience after that. Now, as I started working and as I started becoming a working professional and grew up and got a job and all that stuff, my degree programs now are listed below my work experience. Now, this However, let me just throw this out there. If I were to apply for another teaching position somewhere, like in the country or out of the country, wherever it might be, I would list my education first if I was applying for a teaching job. Now, if I'm not applying for a teaching job, because I'm now a working professional, I've been working for a little bit now, I'm going to list my education after my work experience. So you always want to make sure it comes after your work experience. Now, if your work experience is going to weigh heavy on your, like if it has more weight in terms of you finding a position, you'll want to list that first. But if you're just, you're still in college, you're a recent graduate, and that's really a big portion of your kind of your experience into the industry, you're going to want to list that first. So it kind of depends on how much work experience you have and what kind of positions you are applying for. But really, really good question. Thank you. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for joining me for this last 30 minutes. Now, I will not be I might be live streaming next week, but I'm going to be in Las Vegas. My kids have spring break, so we are going to be there. If I can find a nice little spot to jump on and live stream with you, I definitely will. And if not, then I will be back again next week. In fact, next week the week after that, I have a special announcement coming out. If you are on my email list, you'll get the announcement. I want to share one last thing with you before I let you go. This is, let me get to it really quick if I can find it. Give me just 1 second here. Sorry, I didn't have this ready ahead of time, so I'm getting it ready now for you. So in the meantime, if I don't see you guys next week on a live stream in Vegas, what I want you to do is take a look at this. I have a program that's coming out in just a couple weeks, and if you're on my email list, you'll kind of get notified about the program. And of course, if you jump in and you listen to the live stream, you'll also get notified about the program. But worldclasscareer.academy, it is an exclusive online program that is coming out here pretty soon. And if you want to be notified when this program launches and to get a special early bird price where you'll actually receive $100 off the program, jump over to this site. My team will jump into the chat and share this link with you. You'll also get my new and improved 6-second resume template to kind of help you get started. Now, in the program, we really dissect this resume template. In fact, we take it up a notch and we turn it into a professional resume template. But this is a template to kind of get you started. So you'll get that template along with notification when the program launches and for you to get the $100 off. So you'll notice in this program, we talk all about your resume, your job search strategy, of course, my favorite subject, LinkedIn. We also talk about cover letters. So anyway, jump in and look at that. If you're interested, you can go ahead and click on that link and it will allow you to get the resume and a special for the early bird when that program launches. So thank you, you guys. I know that I'm getting better at keeping up with the chat. So a lot of comments came in. I'm so glad you guys were here. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, David, Lindell. So glad to have you. Tiara, Kieran again, of course, one of my biggest supporters. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, everyone. Anita, I'm so glad that you guys came, and I will see you next time when I go live, or keep an eye out for the video that I'm going to be posting later this week, all about what not to say in an interview. So thanks, guys, and I will see you again really soon.